Hey everyone, welcome back to Ben and Friends. I'm Ben, and again, I have no friends, but, this story is going to be about me and a friend. It's what's going to be. So, this counts, kind of, for a Ben and Friends project? Good. All right, I see you're all nodding and agreeing with me. So today we're going to tell you the story of how I and Dan from the Comicstorian team have known about this game, Gotham Knights, which is in the title, how we've known about this for 5 years, and I have managed to keep my mouth shut until it was officially announced. And when it was announced, I told the story one time on stream of how I knew about this game, and I have kept my mouth shut for this entire time. So in order to go back to where this began, we have to go back to the Wayback Machine. We have to go all the way back in time to 2017, 2018 time frame. Do you guys remember that game Lego Super Villains or DC Super Villains? And it was all the Lego Super Villains. And Dan and I got invited to go out to California and create characters. We got to create characters that were going to be in the game and be a part of the DC Super Villains continuity. They couldn't be official characters, they had to be goofy, and what they were going to be was going to be the preset modules so that when you went to go play the game, you could pick my character. Now, I made Red Stabby. Red Stabby is basically a variation on Red Hood, and at the time, I made an entire backstory for him, and I don't remember it at all. Dan, from the Comicstorian team, made Lady Cool, and he had to say it that way every single time, Lady Cool. Well, the part of the reason he had to say it that way is because our contact, who I will not drop a name here just in case, they don't work there anymore, but I don't want to get anyone in trouble. They also enjoyed the name Lady Cool. So he basically made Killer Frost and I made Red Hood. That's basically what we ended up doing, but we had a blast doing it. Now, when you go to where this was being filmed and created, it's one of the WB Games studios. And there was no indication as to what was going on in this studio. So we went into this nondescript building and we got escorted up and the doors open up and it was like Willy Wonka happening. We walked in there and there was candy everywhere. There was chocolate fountains, but it was a WB game. So the chocolate fountain was like blood coming off of Scorpion, and instead of seeing gumdrops and stuff like that, we got to see, Sub-Zero's heads over here on a pike. I'm not joking. They had a life-size Scorpion in there, and they had memorabilia from all of the WB games, and it was amazing. So we got to walk into this Willy Wonka factory of WB games, all of this cool stuff around us, and all of the doors were locked up. And I don't know why, because I feel like it would have been a weekday, but no one was in the office. It was literally me, Dan, and this other person who was escorting us through the building. So we get through the first set of super tight, NASA level security doors with air seals in the whole 9 yards. Whoosh, you are in WB Games. We get to go into this private room, and on my left is what appears to be a library of all the games they've ever made, every console, the whole 9 yards. That's really cool. On our right is a conference room. Now the conference room is where Dan and I were supposed to go in and play DC Super Villains. I believe it's Lego DC Super Villains. I might be wrong, but whatever it is. We got to go in there, we get to play the game, record a bunch of footage, make our characters, which is how we made the video, if you've been watching Comicstorian back then, how that video came to be. That's where we got to do all of that. But when we went to that door with no one else in the building, that conference room was locked. So the contact was well, hold on, you guys stand right here, right in this spot. I'm going to go find the keys. Okay, well, if you have not been watching this video, you've only been listening to it. I have ADD, and I bounce around a lot. I mean, I'm literally going right here. So if you leave me alone in a building that has all kinds of fun secrets, and I'm not going to get in trouble, at least I didn't think I was going to get in trouble, but I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm not going to be able to stand in front of an empty conference room. So I start to wander. I'm just freely wandering through WB Games. Not really intentionally. It started with me just talking to Dan like this, and I'm just kind of going back and forth. But then my pacing turned into more I'm doing 10-foot paces. Then it was 20-foot pacing. Then I ended up in another hallway. That's basically what happened. So Dan and I ended up I ended up starting it off, wandering down this hallway that I shouldn't have been down. And I get to this area, and it's this big presentation kind of a spread. And what it shows on the spread is Gotham City, and how Gotham City has been laid out to be different sections of the city and how they're going to be what gang's in charge of it. And at the bottom of that board was Red Hood, Robin, who we now know as Tim Drake, Nightwing, and Batgirl. Now, Dan and I were both playing the game DC Legends, which is a mobile game at the time, so we saw a bunch of the stats, and we were just like, oh, it must be new versions or something new coming to DC Legends. We glanced at it quickly, and we kind of kept wandering until we ended up against other locked doors. We couldn't go anywhere. So we started to come back, and we started looking at it. And the more we looked at the board, we realized the notes, the stuff on the board, everything, this was not DC Legends creating new characters. This was a new game. And the more we looked at it, the more we started to connect it to the Arkham franchise. Now, this was 4 or 5 years ago. This was most likely super early preliminary, a pitch, if anything. I really doubt the game had any real significant development on it. It didn't even have a name on this board. Otherwise, we would have immediately said, hey, that doesn't sound right. But we started to realize this was something else. This wasn't DC Legends. This was a new game that, in theory, would have featured the Bat family and not Batman. And I looked at Dan and I go, hey, that's not DC Legends, is it? That's something else. That's like a new game. And our contact comes over. And without even thinking of the fact that I am literally in a space that we should not have been, I look to them and I go, hey, what is this thing on the wall? And she goes, oh, I don't know what that is. I'm here to do the Lego game with you. And I go, oh, because it looks like it could be like a sequel to like an Arkham game or like a Batman game. And she looks right at me and Dan, a big grin on her face, and she goes, yeah, doesn't it? It's a good thing you signed an NDA. And we never spoke of the game and couldn't speak of the game until it officially came out. And so now I can tell you the story about how I've been seething about this game that I didn't even know if it was going to come out, but basically had my favorite characters in it and was possibly going to be a game that was going to be amazing. But we saw it. We wandered into the wrong spot at the wrong time. Or I guess the wrong spot at the right time. Either way, Dan and I knew about this game in its entirety. Not its entirety, but we knew the general plot and what was going on for the last 5 years. When they finally announced it like a year ago, I was like, okay, I can finally tell this story. The game exists. So that's the story of how I knew about Gotham Knights 5 years ago, and I have not been able to tell you about what I knew about Gotham Knights this entire time. But I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. I'm hoping to bring more videos like this to this channel, because Ben and Friends is supposed to be about our video game adventures, but also all the other adventures that we get to go on and do. The idea is just the stuff we do here in the Comicstorian office, which is a lot of video games. So you're going to see a lot of that type of content over here. But if you like this story time about some of the adventures that we've had, and you want to see other things such as Pokemon card openings or us eating Oreos of all weird flavors, I found some really weird Oreos we're going to try, then just like, subscribe, and stick around to the channel. We got more Gotham Knights footage coming up. We got a co-op gameplay going on the live stream real soon. Stick around. I hope you guys enjoy this content, and see you next time.